So welcome everybody. It's Masterclass time. I'm happy that you're here. And as you've read from the title, it's really the first Masterclass. It's a premiere for everybody. And my name is Sabine. I'm the editor-in-chief of Sportswear International magazine. And we do this Masterclass speeches in cooperation with Denim PV, which I think is a great pleasure. So good to have you here. And I don't want to keep the introduction too long for the Smart Creation Masterclass. Let me already introduce you to our first speaker, Yann Queinnec. C'était correct? Okay. From the Bretagne, I learned, from the last name. And well, to cut it short, to introduce him, if you have a brand or a company and you need an expert who advises you on matters, legal matters, social matters, sustainable matters, he would be the person to talk to. He worked in the legal and tax business before, so he knows the traditional way of the business. Then he changed to Sherpa, which is an activist organization who consults in legal matters for NGOs. And a couple of years together, he said with one of his enemies, former enemies, he founded Affectio Mutandi, his agency based in Paris, and does just the thing I described, consults companies, brands, NGOs, also the government, in certain and really difficult matters when it comes to the environment, sustainable matters, legal things. And now he will tell us what to do if some critical aspects in sustainable ways appear. And yeah, he will also give us examples from the food industry, from other consumer industries, and of course he will also tell us something about the fashion and hopefully also the denim industry. Yann, it's your stage.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, in 2 words, we, with Pierre Samuel, my partner at the back of the room, we have created a kind of hybrid between Greenpeace and Publicis. I don't know if you are familiar to those two companies, but the way Publicis and Greenpeace are addressing companies' activity is a bit interactive, I would say. So this is the way Affectio Mutandi address these issues. We are some kind of sparring partners with our clients and companies, stating some issues. And the point with this very messy slide, which is done on purpose, there will be just one slide during this masterclass, is just to tell a story about why these issues of sustainability are becoming a must-have for companies, and how these issues of sustainability could become business friendly, and how to handle all these issues. So the first way to describe this phenomenon is to state that there are 3 big mutations that we are working on for some years now: a digital mutation, a social mutation, and a legal mutation. And those 3 are interacting. And to sum up, that means that today companies, legally speaking, have to demonstrate their diligence on some of the issues: environmental impact of their activities within the supply chain, human rights issues, labor law issues, corruption issues. They have to demonstrate somehow how do they address these issues, how do they prevent some impacts from occurring. So this is a legal mutation. Now this has been a mutation from very soft law, voluntary issues, to now hard law. The second mutation is a social one. Stakeholders, some you may very well know, Greenpeace, for instance, but others dedicated to some issues with human rights on one side or environmental issues, are mobilized on these issues to put pressure on companies. You all know that. And this is interacting with the digital mutation now, which, of course, somehow increase the risk and massify the risk. And there is a kind of totally lively and interactive way of putting pressure. Just to come back to these issues and illustrate, you have heard about this current, these days, hashtag Who Made My Clothes. I'm sure you have been through it these days, currently. This is something which is a way to mobilize citizens. And I have a question for you here. Have you ever in this room sign an Avaz or a change.org petition, online petition? Who has already signed this kind of petition here? So we have some, what we call homo ethicus numericus. You are sensible and sensitive to these issues, and when you have the occasion to express yourself through a campaign organized through this kind of online petition platform, you do it. It's not that demanding, not very time consuming. You just only need a computer or a smartphone to do so. So somehow this digital pressure is making an homo ethicus numericus, which might be an offensive one, critical one, but who might become also a positive stakeholder. This is all the point. And the whole story now would be to illustrate how this must-have, which means take into consideration sustainability issue is a must-have for a company now, how we can transform these issues in a business-friendly way. These are some examples of good or less good practices coming from various sectors of activities. You all know about the conscious collection. H&M has issued this for quite a time now, 2010, I think. This is, I would say, to quote this issue or to rate it, think twice before entering in this kind of campaign. If you only produce 1% of your activity in a conscious way, you expose the 99 other % of your process of production. So that might be counterproductive. Okay? So this is a very rough sum up. You can interact and interrupt me if you want to go into details. So first example, this H&M strategy is a way to demonstrate that this company has addressed these issues. Is it the ideal way to address it? This is a question, a matter of a question. You have other companies from very various sector of activities. Sorry about this one, this is a French one. We are in the activity of a company providing furnitures, desks. And one of the marketing arguments is that when you buy this one has been produced very near from you. So this issue of territories, proximity, the way that you may, if you want to have information, you may know who has produced this good. And this is entering in the advertising language, and somehow that has been something put on the forefront of their marketing strategy. So we are in the issue of first trend. Let me just specify that I'm going through these 3 steps. We are in the first one. How do I make a kind of product valorization with the social or environmental dimensions? After, we will go on the transparency issue, and after the dialogue. The product. Here, for instance, you know Lipton. Lipton has put on the forefront of their advertising the fact that the tea is produced in a fair and equitable way of trading. So this is something which has been delivered for years from Lipton. Now they have entered into a process where a large proportion of their production sourcing of tea is subject to a label with a certification. So you may already observe the difference between H&M and Lipton in the matter of proportion of goods and productions. Pampers, another field of activities, is much more on the issue of philanthropic marketing. If you buy a product, we will refund the United Nations for Children issues in order to pay for medicines and namely for future mothers' issues on health issues. Another sector of activity is the IT. Have you even been through the notion of conflict minerals? I don't know if you are familiar with this notion. In the IT industry, there is a big issue where do some of the raw material, and there are 4 of them, a bit sensible raw materials, because they are extracted in some countries with some weak governance issues, and even the fact that these raw materials finance wars on the field. Obama, when he came in power, he has imposed to companies operating in US to demonstrate and trace that their product do not contain conflict minerals. And this legal pressure became little by little a marketing argument. Intel, for instance, has put this pressure and transformed it in a business-friendly manner, I would say. And they have launched the initiative of conflict-free. If you buy my computers, they are conflict-free. So they make of this pressure, legal pressure, a marketing argument. Using also the digital mutations, sending very strange bugs to some famous YouTubers in order for these influencers to speak about the story of what is the conflict minerals and why does Intel has sent me this box and what is inside the box, and they explain so to all their followers what is behind the conflict-free marketing campaign. Still, and to finish on the issue of how do you make a valorization of your product throughout your good social or environmental performance, I'm sure you all know about this brand Veja. We are in the sneaker field of activity. Veja DNA, the DNA of this brand has been first and foremost to make a responsible, sustainable product. So from the raw material in Brazil, on the rubber, for instance, and the working conditions, they can guarantee that everything is fair and socially, environmentally. They did not even have to pay for advertising. Their marketing strategy has been to have a blog, to have some good press relations, that's all. Absolutely no expenses in the marketing or advertising issues. The community is speaking about them. And hopefully they are producing some quite nice products. Obviously, this is quite important. We should not forget this. But to finish on this issue, your products can be somehow sustainably branded and marketed. The other trend, which is a bit more challenging, is to be transparent. So this is also a new way to promote how sustainable my company is. I commit myself. So Ben & Jerry's, for instance, in their package, they provide very on the forefront on what kind of issues they committed themselves, their company. So somehow they deliver this discourse and they address these issues through, you see, kind of nice way to communicate. Even children can read on the package in order to learn about this brand, and little by little creating a kind of sustainable relations with consumer, whatever their age. You have other issues of transparency, which is the recycling issue, the reuse of product. And in another field of activities, in the printer industry, for instance, the ink issue and you know, all these issues of furniture for your office. The issue of recycling became, for this company, and this is the initiative of Close the Loop Zero Waste initiative, the company is providing advice for printer industry, but they also produce ink cartridge in order to, and they put the issue of they are totally reused and recyclable, and they make a kind of marketing trend on this. Transparency is also a matter of reporting. You know all about, I'm sure, about these very boring reports from companies every year that companies have to deliver the annual report on financial performances. Now you have also a part of this report dedicated to non-financial performances that become this kind of very boring document. Only experts, annoying stakeholders, or potentially investors look at these documents, but this is also a way to be transparent. And the legal pressure is now addressing specifically this issue. Companies have to report on the risks they have identified, the measures they have put in place to avoid them, and the results, and to make this public. The next trend or step is kind of mixed with this kind of reports that only we say in French, les initiés. I don't know about the English word, but only experts and a kind of very specific public is very interested by this. The point is that at that stage, let's consider this. Consumers more and more take care about these issues. And the point is that they have the complicity of the legal dimension. Now, when a consumer asks, whatever the industry you are, in France, if they want to have some information on the social or environmental conditions, they can ask you, how about the way this product has been produced, socially speaking? You have to deliver the information and demonstrate. So somehow the first company who will be able to answer these questions in a reliable way. So let's come back to this kind of think twice before stating that you will save the world, or do it massively. If you answer properly the question to these consumers, Homo ethicus numericus, or very classical consumer, you win. We think this is the new trend, being able to tell the story about a product on the social and environmental dimension. And the trend which is arising now is, and we see it somehow here with the hackathon, which is in process right now, the dialogue with your stakeholders. Whether they are your offensive stakeholders or your consumers, now the new challenge is to enter into a dialogue with them. Let's talk. And just 2 initiatives to illustrate this point. Dell, for the last years, has initiated what they call the customer advisory panels. They hear about customers' expectations. And they all relate in a majority on social, environmental, and even corruption issues and conflict minerals for Dell. And this is a way for Dell to identify the expectations and try to build the answers with the dialogue with the stakeholders. Some of them may be experts or totally not, mere consumers, but this is a way to enter into a dialogue. Just this one, you can't see anything, even me, I can't, but you may observe this logo of Carrefour. So we are in the retail industry, in various kind of goods. They organize an hackathon within 3 weeks, on the 24th of May, during 2 days, with consumers, with some suppliers on their territories. They want to create, namely, applications, apps on smartphone, which make the link direct between their supermarket, the client, and the producer. The point, you see, is this kind of dialogue which is throughout the supply chain. At the end of the day, the point is to convince clients that when they buy this product, this is a responsible one somehow. So this is also a way to enter into a dialogue with your consumers and, generally speaking, your stakeholders. And I would say at that stage, I will stop. If you have any questions on these issues, but as you see, the legal, the social, and the digital mutations are entering in this kind of quite messy slide, but that was a way to tell you about the trends. And now I'm ready to answer to any of your questions. Thank you for your attention.